Thank you all for coming today to this very special opportunity to listen to the artists and our curator talk about the exhibition InGrained, which is an exhibition featuring 24 Pennsylvania wood sculptors, furniture makers, and wood turners. We're so excited with this exhibition, and we're delighted to have Mark Sfirri, our curator, return after being here in 2008 when he curated Across the Grain, which was another phenomenal wood exhibition. Going back in my lifetime, woodworking was the first class I ever taught at an art center in the 1970s, so I have a special interest in wood personally, and so it excites me as well to have this exhibition. As you know, Mark has quite a repertoire of his resume. He has taught at Bucks County Community College. He's lectured all over the area. His work is in the collections of the Renwick Museum, Yale Art Gallery, Carnegie Mellon Museum of Art, and the James Michener Museum. So I don't want to take too much time because we're going to be listening to around 10 artists. Is that correct? Yeah. And we're excited to hear about your story and how you executed your work. It's always so fascinating. I want to thank Pam Parker, our exhibition coordinator, for all her efforts, and she will be leading this discussion along with Mark.
Similar to the last exhibition that I did here, I wanted to include new and old, and not just furniture, not just turning, not just sculpture, but a little bit of everything. Emerging artists and established artists too. So from the historical standpoint, once again, we have back Wharton Esherick, who did the stool and the library ladder that was lent by the Wharton Esherick Museum. If you haven't been to the Wharton Esherick Museum, you need to go to the Wharton Esherick Museum. It's only a half an hour from here. We also have a chair by George Nakashima, his conoid chair. And then this year, I've also included a person who passed away this year was Alphonse Mattia, who was somebody that was dear to my heart. He was a grad student when I was a lowly sophomore in the woodworking program at Rhode Island School of Design. There's a carved bowl that he did in the vitrine in the corner, a cherry piece that was from his sophomore year at Philadelphia College of Art. That's worth checking out. And then we have two of his valets, which is sort of his signature work from the 1980s. This one's called Grace for Grace Jones, and this one is Mr. Potato Head. This was part of an exhibition that he had at the Helen Drutt Gallery in 1985, and it was just all valets, and it was just a really impressive exhibition. The Esherick work, these two pieces, and the next thing I want to talk about are the prints that are in the back corner. So we're going to head over in that direction, okay? There was a collection of Esherick prints that we had on the back wall here, and it was just a neat addition to it, to the show. And what's happened since then is that these are sort of placed in sequence. At the Wharton Esherick Museum, there was a poplar tree in the back corner that kept getting bigger and bigger, and finally it died and they had to take it down. So they cut the tree up into boards and thinner boards, thicker boards, and there was an exhibition called Poplar Culture, which actually was named by Alphonse Mattia, just a take on popular culture. And the first three prints here were made from blocks that were carved and then printed. So the first one is Alphonse Mattia's piece. This is a piece by me, and this one's by Miriam Carpenter. So some people ask what a block print is or a woodcut. You take a block of wood, you have an image of something that you want to carve, this, drawn on a piece of paper, and you flip it backwards, because whatever you print comes out opposite, and then wherever you carve is white and whatever you leave is black. So that's simply how it's done, although there's quite a variety of things to do with it. And then, so they were from this exhibition. This is a photograph of Wharton Esherick at his printing press. He used to do all his own printing of his prints back in the 20s, up to about 1933. Did about 350 different ones. Miriam and I did a couple of our prints on that press as a kind of a fun thing to do at the museum for some event that they were having back then. So this is from 2011. This is from 1930. These are two prints by Wharton Esherick. They're actually wood engravings. So instead of taking a board of wood and carving into it, you're carving into the end grain. So the detail is much, much finer. So that's what these two are. And then we have a series of other prints that the people that are in the exhibition, I said, if you have ever done a woodcut, let me know, because I'd like to include it in the show. So these are two by Miriam Carpenter again. This one is by David Fisher. David Fisher has carved work on the table there. Dan Zobel is here. And Chelsea Witt did this piece, next one. And Colin Pisano did the last two. So it's still wood, but it's in a different sort of format.
My work in this show is this dining room table, the white piece on the wall back there, and then these colorful cubes on the wall right here. The piece back there came out of some playing around with some Western yellow cedar that I got, and just sort of like seeing what I could do with it and splitting it with a maul, which I found to be an incredibly joyful and rewarding process that left a really beautiful sort of supple texture. And then just making lots and lots of that and seeing what would come of it. Similarly, this was another piece that came out of just a repetitive process, starting with seeing what happens when I make 500 or 600 little cubes and paint them different colors and put them in piles and arrange them in different ways. And then finally, this was a dining room table or a desk or whatever one might want to use it for. That was made with Don, and again, sort of it's all beefy pieces. All the legs are all just one piece of wood, but it's sort of a culmination of different components that come together to form something like greater than the sum of their parts. And all of these pieces have maybe not that one, but this one has a very rough texture to it that I really like. I really like to use joyful processes that bring me joy, and very bold colors, obviously, and hopefully some of the joy that I put into the pieces comes across at the other side. So, thank you.
I was fortunate enough to do a residency in Sweden 6 or 7 years ago, and I was interested in looking at kind of similarities in 18th century furniture, American and Scandinavian furniture, that was sort of interpreting more high style, super fancy European stuff, French, English. So this is a pretty direct copy of an 18th century bedside table, just a simple little piece. And I decided to translate it from the kind of solid wood joinery that the original piece would have been made in into a more industrial process of making plywood. So this is all made out of bent plywood that was made by me in a vacuum system, and it's quarter sawn ash on the outside. Another thing I was kind of researching, playing around with at that point was a joint that a Japanese woodworker friend of mine had shown me, which allowed you to pass 3 sticks through XYZ axis without breaking any of them, which is sort of a little bit uncanny in woodworking. So it's this little puzzle joint that allows you to do that. And I worked it into multiples that I could sort of articulate the internal space of this historical piece with this grid. So it's it's a historical piece that has a conceptual aspect to it. Most of my work has been black and white over the past few years. I kind of find the color and the color of wood very beautiful, but very distracting from its textural possibilities. So I've continued to work with the grid and this joint in multiples. This black piece is the most recent piece I've done. I sort of drove the idea to the limit. It's a bench or a piece which represents the space inside of a bench. Okay. And yeah, thank you. And thank you, Mark. Thank you, Pam. It's a really great show. It's really, really good. Yeah.
I've been doing this carving and turning since about 1980 or 81. Seems like forever. So I've been liking to get into getting copper work into my woodworkings, and with this piece here, Dragon Tea, the copper is flat, not really textured very much at all, but lots of nails holding that together. A couple of different techniques in there. There's a dovetailed box. There's some wood turning. The spout and the handle are turned in a fashion of Michael Hoslick's boxes, if you know that name at all. And then the texturing is all done with these little cup bars that I use. From there, I wanted to learn more about copper work, so I started doing repoussé and chasing, which is the dragons on this piece here. Basically figured out what that was, figured out how to do that, and made about 100 different tools to be able to facilitate that, creating those dragons. This piece here has got a little copper work on it, some carving, some texturing, and I actually started adding some turquoise stones in part of the design as well. The piece in the corner, I was invited to do an exhibition many years ago now, maybe it was 2009 or 2016, I forget. But it represents a shooting that happened in South Carolina. Nine people were shot at a church, and in order to do this exhibition, they wanted you to make something to represent that. So Searching for Peace is that there's nine lilies here. They're searching for peace, being guided by the light of God, which comes from within, which is why the bright colors inside. And it all comes from this black evil kind of a base there. And thanks again, Mark, for really putting this together and inviting me to join in.
Okay. David is not here with us today. David Fisher. He wanted to be here though, so I'm gonna count that. So he's somebody I've been communicating with over the past year or two, and he does exquisite work. He's a high school history teacher from Western Pennsylvania, halfway between Erie and Pittsburgh, 6 miles from Ohio. He's completely self-taught, and he does these exquisite pieces. He has bowls. He has a great website too, and some videos on it. The lettering that you see here, get up close and look at that because that's incredible. And also this spoon. The fine detailing. This is not a turned. I'm allowed to touch this because I'm the curator, according to Pam. And if anything happens, it's on her. It's not on me. So, but this is just a green piece of wood. This is apple that he's carved out the inside and the outside, and the textures of the gouge marks throughout. It's just, if you've ever done carving, I mean, carving to me, of all woodworking, furniture, you learn about joinery and a general sense of grain direction with the grain, across the grain. Turning has its own set of things that you have to pay attention to, but carving, every inch of the way, the grain could be changing, and you have to deal with it and have it look clean. So, and David is just a master at that, and I just wanted to mention his work here too. So come up close and look at it after we're done here. Okay.
I'm Janine, and I'm a wood turner. I kind of fell into it by accident because I tried it once, and well, what do you know? I feel that I feel like one of the biggest strengths of wood turning is how strangely human it is. I immediately after turning my first piece felt like some kind of affinity toward this square piece that then became round and soft. And ever since then, I have been hooked. I eventually figured out that part of what that attraction is the fact that humans are kind of round and soft. We've got these doubly curved surfaces, and when you turn a piece of wood, it immediately not only curves in this direction, but there's that double curvature there. And as a furniture maker, I was like, oh wow, that should go in furniture, I understand. So my very first turned piece, I tried to make wood turning for like the entire body. That was like the whole piece was turned, and you put your whole body into it. And it was too much. And I didn't have the skills to do it at the time. So I started small. I started making pieces that were just focused on the hand to the piece. So different kinds of hand holds, different shapes. Eventually, like years and years go by, I finally decided to give it a shot with the feet. So that stool over there represents my first like wood turning for the human foot. And maybe in 10 more years of turning, I will do one for like the thigh and, slowly step my way up. But I am really happy with these pieces. They are fully turned, more or less. So say with the foot one, each one of those little waveforms is turned on 2 axes. So it's not carved, it's actually done entirely on the lathe. And I turned one profile and then moved the axes and then turned the other profile. And what that does as a footrest is it gives you this wider diameter of curve across the top. So instead of your foot like resting over this small little surface, you've got this nice wide, and it's so comfortable. It worked out really well. This one is also turned. So this one is a stool for the hand. I'm calling it the hand stool, and that's the feet stool. This one is done with split turning. So there's 2 different. Is it okay if I touch it?
It's still yours.
Okay, I just want to show you guys the top. So in the top are 2 handholds that are also turned. They were turned in, oh man, there's a lot of turners in the room, so I feel like you guys know what I'm talking about, but it's really complicated to explain. I made 2 separate wood turnings that I then split apart and then put back together and reconstituted into the stool seat, glued it all together, and then turned it again in order to give you this really nice, like, sweet hold. So, they took a really long time. I luckily was able to finish them up at a residency I did at the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship in Maine this summer, where I met a lot of people who are actually in this room too. So that's been very cool and very satisfying. The other thing I really love about wood turning is that the community is super tight. I actually learned to turn from my partner who's here with me today. We met in school, and he learned turning from Mark. And now I am teaching turning too. It is just this weird little circle. One of my students is here as well. And I'm just blown away by this room, and this show. It is a really fantastic one. So thank you, Mark. I don't know where you've gone. This has been really amazing.
These are my 2 pieces for the show. They both began with my sketching traditional furniture, in this case, a stepped Japanese tansu and a tea cabinet. And I was really drawn to all the little doors and drawers, and I had the idea of what if I took each of those doors and made it a volume and started pushing them together or pulling them apart, what would happen in the furniture. So in this one, those volumes of the drawers are sliding back and forth and intersecting each other, and parts are disappearing. So the legs are contrasting in turn and forms to make it look almost improvisational, like it's propping it up, like the whole thing could just kind of float away. And in this one, it's the opposite. The volumes are kind of floating away. And I made this frame, one to support the boxes in the air, but also to have something contrasting to the sort of the wood, the rectangular, the orthographic, and everything aligned to make something very different that made it stand out.
this piece and the round piece on the wall back there are two pieces within a series of abstracted cityscape sculptures that I've been making for about 10 or 11 years now. They are made from a variety of different woods. This one particularly is made from American black walnut, and the other one on the wall is ash, maple, red oak, white oak, some mahogany and cherry, a variety of different things, maybe some poplar. There's a couple of sprinklings in there. So they're compositions of about 100 pieces each, and they're designed to be abstracted cityscapes, to capture the kind of fast-paced, frantic nature of being in the heart of a city. I make each form individually on a bandsaw, so they're all individually cut and assembled. So there's a technical part of each project that happens in the beginning. It goes through a long milling process, and then there's a series of jigs and fixtures that allow me to capture the overall diameter, the number of pieces. It allows the geometry to come together in a full circle without any issues. I add some joinery. It goes through an assembly process. But at some point along the way, I allow myself to turn off that technical part of my brain and turn on the machines. I put on some good music, and I work intuitively on the bandsaw. So that part of the project, there's no predetermined patterns or designs. I work one piece to the next and generate the compositions so that no two pieces are the same. And the resulting compositions are a good variety of different forms. And I like to think that that's what cities are too. A wild composition of unique people and from all different places, just like each piece of wood in it is unique and different. So this one's a square form, that one's a round form. They take on different forms over time. I like the round pieces. They're inspired by a wagon wheel form. It's a reference of the journey that a lot of people have made over time from the country to the city in search of a better life. So really lucky to be here. Thank you, Mark. Thanks, ma'am.
I'm James Burrell. I'm an Aries. Don't hold that against me. Be quick about the work. So over here in the corner, mortality, time, labor, right? Quantitative time, body, labor structures, thinking about numbers, systems. I'll talk about that later. Marooned, as I guess like a 9-year-old child, witnessing cricket played for the first time. The Maroons in the 60s and the 70s. So that's bamboo. Toothpicks. So this was a collaboration. This was a whole piece. It was on my workbench, and I was beating on something, and I knocked it over, and it hit the ground, split into pieces, and slid against the wall, and it made that shape. And it scared me, and I immediately called my wife, and I sent a picture to her, and she's like, "Oh, it's beautiful, it's mine." So that's not for sale. And Yukari, can you raise your hand, please, so everyone can see? Yeah. So we've collaborated 3 times. 2 times children have a 7-year-old, that's 27, and I have a 23-month-old who's 23. So they're establishing my relationship with them right now. So the bottom part, please be nice. That was my part of the collaboration, and she didn't want it. So it's here. I want to thank Mark for giving me the opportunity to work with amazing artists, right? I'm looking at the work, I'm just, wow. So thank you very much.
First of all, thank you, Mark, for inviting me for the show. My name is Kuno Peter Park. I have 2 pieces. One piece over there towards the prints, and then this one. I mainly focus on, in my work, I mainly focus on finding a lot of similarity between wood as a material and human or living creature as a material. And I see a lot of like wood is a material that used to be a living organism, where us humans also a living organism, and the texture or the feel of the material is also very similar, and they act very similar. There has a sense of warmth. They expand and contract via moisture content. They have a grain direction. Our muscles have, our skin has grain direction. So I focus those things in my work, and I get a lot of inspiration seeing it from that point of view. So a lot of my inspirations are from human body, creature, animals, and extension of that. Sometimes it's cartoon characters or et cetera, et cetera. So the piece on that, it's called a piggyback chair, and it's from I was remembering my experience in having a piggyback ride when I was a child on my father's shoulders, and I was trying to recreate that experience using wood as medium. So it sort of looks like a riding horse, and you're supposed to be riding it, and the hood on the front is supposed to represent the human head, my dad's head, and there's some, and you're supposed to be hugging and rubbing your hands, and that's also what I really focus on. It's the touch of the wooden surface and the sitting and the putting your weight on. That's why I love making chairs or seating units like stools or chairs. And this one, it's called a teddy, like the teddy bear. So it's a case of like taking inspiration from like a cartoon character, or sometimes it's like a collage of an historic furniture reference, like the Klizmo chair, which is echoing the style of the leg of an old Greek chair. But anyway, and that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mark and Pam. It's kind of an honor to be in this show alongside some friends. Mark was my professor, so was Alphonse. And so being represented alongside former professors and like kind of icons in the industry, as well as friends, means a lot. So thank you. Thank you, Pam. So to talk a little bit about my work, my day job is like a manager at a furniture shop. Everything has to be like within a 32nd of an inch. Everything has to be very precise. Matters a lot to not screw any of that up. So when I'm exploring like my artistic side, I like to play a little bit more with like organic and just kind of play colors, textures. But if you look at the pieces, like the bases for these three pieces intertwine in the center, so they act as like a three-part object. I had to learn a little bit to make some, like, do some metalworking to make the bases for these pieces. A lot of these pieces are turned as bowls. The order of operations is really critical for the carving process to carve the interior. You have to turn the exterior, turn the interior, carve the interior, flip it, carve the exterior, carve the rim. Then whenever you burn it and color it, just that order of operations matters a lot so it doesn't blow up on you preemptively. These are turned bowls that have been split and section removed and then reassembled. I'm a little playful with the names. These, when I started this series, I just called them the Holy Bowlies. So this is the Holy Trinity. And these, my last name is Zobel. These are the Zobowls. Each of them has, on the interior, has like a abstracted Z. Like, you see it? So they're a form that I've been exploring probably like for 2 years now. And then over on the wall is one print in a frame that I had made. That print is called A Boy and His Dog. I had someone joke with me yesterday, they're like, how do you get a boy and his dog out of this? The left-hand side of the print is a gear, and I'm kind of a gearhead, really into mechanical things. The right side of the print is a hibiscus flower, and after my dog passed away, he's buried under a hibiscus plant in my yard, so it blooms every year. So if you're looking at it and are like, how do you get a boy and his dog out of it? That's kind of how that relates to that. And the frame is just a play on, the frame is just like a nice oak frame. So yeah, thank you so much, and thank you Mark and Pam again.
Next up is Derek.
So I was a student of Mark as well many years ago. He has had an enormous impact on my work. He kind of established my, or gave me the inspiration to do, like using the lathe as really a carving machine. Now my dad is a carver and a woodturner as well, and he did a lot of bird carving. So my work, those are my two biggest influences really. So I started doing these kind of like wildlife turnings. So it's multi-axis as well as, so what I started doing more recently was this multi-axis but also assemblage. So, and I like taking advantage of the textures from wood turning. So like early on when I started doing this stuff, people were asking, well, why don't you just like carve a fox or whatever? And then, so I tried to figure out ways that present forms that couldn't be replicated via carving. And a lot of the textures on this make it basically impossible to do it in that way. Like the only way to make this the way it exactly is by using a lathe to do it. More recently, I got very interested in some of these marks that a lathe makes with trying to imply motion. So like the woodpecker, the lathe cuts actually imply like that concentric movement of their head. And then some other things that I did with this, so not only do they have like this trailing texture, like the direction of the movement is the direction of the cuts, then I did this thing on the back where I made it almost, like ethereal, like there's hardly any wood there, so you can just see through it, so it really looks like it's moving. If you get down and look, you can kind of see it. But yeah, so that's what I do. That's what I'm an animal nut. I volunteered at a wildlife rescue, so like when I first started doing a lot of the animals, it was like I kind of did everything, like rhinos or whatever, like kind of less. I focused less on Pennsylvania stuff, but for this show and just in general, since I started volunteering at a local rescue, it really kind of tightened my work into local flora and fauna. That's it. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Pam.
So if you are interested in one of Derek's pieces, you get his sweatshirt too. Today only. Thank you, Derek. Thank you to all the artists. I think that's everyone that's here. Is that correct? Did I miss anybody? No? Okay. Pam says there's time for a question or two. Does anybody have a question or two? You sure? This is your big opportunity.
Mark, you didn't talk about your pieces.
I didn't. I didn't think it was right. Well, I'll talk about one if you want. As I mentioned, Alphonse Mattia passed away this past year in April 10th. And about December last year, his daughter got in touch with me, who I never met, Isabel Mattia. And she asked me if I could make a walking stick for him. And I didn't I just said, she wanted to commission it. And I said, look, I'll just make it. I'd love to do it. And I said, you just have to tell me how long it is. She said, well, he's 5'8". And I said, he's 5'8", but he has a long torso. I need a specific dimension. And she said, yeah, you're right. So at the hospital, they had an adjustable cane, and he set it to what he wanted. And I got my dimension, 31 inches. And I thought, well, it has to be functional, which this is, but it has to be quirky. It can't be, normal. I really had no idea what I was going to do, and then I started freezing up, like, how could I make something for him that's going to be worthy, right? So it was just this tough thing, but, I did it, and this is the piece I made, and I mailed it to him, and he was very happy about it. He sent me a picture with, holding it and stuff. And a few months went by. It was actually about a week before he died. I hadn't heard anything, whether he was using it or not, so I called him and I said, listen, I'm just wondering, and it's okay, I'm just curious, do you still use that cane? And he said, Mark, it's a babe magnet. It's better than a puppy. And he was such a people person that it was the perfect thing. He said, and then Isabel got on the phone and she said, when you walk into a cancer ward, there's not a lot of smiling going on, but when he walks in, everybody's face lights up. So it was just a really touching thing.